You know who never gets talked about, like never ever? The Phantom Troupe. When it comes to each character as an individual, the character popularity rankings will look sorta like this. Looking towards the bottom, we find a bunch of freaks, including the greatest character of all time, the man, the myth, the legend. Nah, just kidding. Okay, so this is not gonna be a real hype video. Instead, I carefully want to look at how this minor character, Kortopi, with minimal dialogue and spoken lines, was used in the story for all sorts of different purposes, to give an insight as to how Togashi, the writer of Hunter x Hunter, is able to use the tools in front of him to the best of his abilities. To me, the multi-purpose use of characters and abilities is one of the most enjoyable parts of Hunter x Hunter's writing, so I'd like to discuss that aspect today, through Kortopi. When Kortopi is properly introduced, he's shown using his ability Gallery Fake, Divine Left Hand, Demonic Right Hand, which allows him to create replicas of any object he touches. This is when the troupe has taken over the auction, through the use of their various abilities. Thanks to Kortopi creating duplicates of the original auction items, the Phantom Troupe gets into a win-win situation, where they will be able to get both the treasure as well as the money that bidders think the items are worth. The next chapter starts with Kurapika finding the corpses of the troupe. By paying attention, the reader will be able to deduce that Kortopi's ability from the previous chapter must be what is behind this trick, rewarding the reader for keeping up with the details. For the readers who weren't sure, there are a few hints, such as in the chapter itself, the final panel, showing the troupe all alive. With the first corpse we saw, Krollo alive and well, together with Kortopi. 2 chapters after the corpses appear, there's a literal explanation of Kortopi's ability right there. So you kinda would get it now if you still had this corpse mystery lingering in your mind. And even if you didn't get it after this chapter, one more chapter later, Kurapika explicitly tells it that it was Kortopi behind the corpses after Hisoka tells him. Letting both the main characters and the reader know, yes, it was indeed Kortopi's conjuration Nen that fooled Kurapika. His shock at the corpses prevented him from thinking rationally. Within 2 chapters of Kortopi's introduction, we already got 2 different uses for the Gallery Fake ability, to copy some treasures to sell and to fake your own death, or your friend's death. A multi-purpose deception Hatsu. Pretty cool. The corpses get used for storytelling, as a way for the troupe to get away from the mafia conflict unscathed, and as a way to have Kurapika get together with his friends, now that he seemingly lost one of his goals. The multi-purpose use of characters and abilities. As Krollo grows more worried after learning about their fortunes, and learning about Gon and Killua who know of the hideout, Krollo decides that further measures must be taken to protect the spider. He asks Kortopi if he can create some dummy hideouts, to which Kortopi responds he could make 50 if necessary, showing off his immense Nen capabilities. Kortopi restricts his end to the items he creates. This entire scene happens right before Killua tries to stake out the troupe's hideout to inform Kurapika. These dummy hideouts increase the tension on Killua's side for 2 reasons. 1. It isn't as easy to find a real hideout anymore, meaning Killua's scouting job will become much more difficult. And 2, Kortopi having his end connected to every dummy building he creates means that if Killua made one wrong decision by trying to sneak into a building, he would be caught by the troupe. In Hunter x Hunter, the characters like to think and strategize about what to do first and foremost, and with Nen in the mix, you need to be extra careful. So Killua realizes the new buildings must be a Nen trick and keeps caution. It's just nice to have Kortopi set up this trap only for Killua to be suspicious about it and be correct. It shows the reader that using your head in this world can save your life. It pays off. One more reason to have the troupe untraceable for Killua is so he can start working together with Melody, who can trace the troupe, bringing her naturally into this mission, specifically into contact with Kurapika's other friends, where she later joins up with Kurapika and Killua goes with Gon. Anyway, back to Kortopi. His end being restricted to his copied items gets another use. Krollo deduces that the chain guy must be with the fake scarlet eyes, which Kortopi copied and then was auctioned off to the Nostrade family. This allows for the story to have the troupe and Kurapika directly confront each other. Gallery Fake, an ability that gets used in more ways than one. Who doesn't love that, bro? I love it. I know I love it. I know I do. In the next arc, Kortopi is once again used to show off the powers of Nen. This time, Shawnark is trying to figure out the nature of Greed Island's card system. And here, Kortopi's Gallery Fake once again is useful, as one of its qualities, and likely a quality of conjuring Nen in general, gets shown. Recreating an object made from Nen won't have the replica have the same special properties that the usual Nen object would have. This is an expected restriction for a conjurer, where it would be way too difficult for copied Nen items to keep their special properties. This tells us that the cards are indeed Nen based, and not an item in a video game made out of code or whatever, which eventually leads to Shawnark's deduction that Greed Island exists in real life. It is also very nice that it is an outside source which figures out that Greed Island exists in real life and not Gon and Killua, meaning Gon and Killua can keep being immersed in the world of Greed Island, while the reader realizes how amazing Greed Island actually is, since it is an existing place in real life. And it is almost all made up of Nen. Great stuff! Also, the fact that this new concept, Greed Island's Nen mechanics, is explained through old concepts that we already know about, Gallery Fake and Blinky. That just makes it easier to understand Greed Island for the reader. Amazing stuff, bro. Great stuff, bro. Amazing. Also notice that Kortopi and Shanark went into Greed Island together. Just like they were together in a scene later on. Foreshadowing? Nah, just a lucky coincidence. Most likely. In his latest appearance so far, Kortopi dies. But that's not all. In Hisoka's fight with Krollo, one of the abilities that ensured Krollo's victory was Kortopi's Hatsu, Gallery Fake. This ability was used for two different purposes, which I will split up to explain in more depth. The first purpose being to show off Nen loopholes. Krollo's plan to defeat Hisoka involves a Nen loophole. Krollo is only able to use 2 of his skill hunter's abilities at once, 2 through the use of his new bookmark. However, there's one special type of Nen Krollo has managed to attain. One of the abilities he stole was Meteor City's elder, his sun and moon, whose Nen after death became so strong, Krollo was able to keep the ability in his book. Nen after death is a power of breaking the norm, so it makes sense that this could happen. A leader of Meteor City giving one of its most important citizens his ability as a parting gift. This creates a rare situation in the Hunter x Hunter world, where a living individual is able to benefit from the enhancement of powers that Nen after death gives. And now we can get to the juicy stuff involving Gallery Fake. Near the end of the match, Krollo uses Gallery Fake to create a bunch of copies of random audience members, then marks them with Sun and Moon, Nen after death. Because of Nen after death, if Gallery Fake is deactivated, the copies will remain. And even if Sun and Moon is deactivated, all its marks will remain too. Because of this, it's able to keep the existing copies that are marked with Sun and Moon, and the Sun and Moon marks intact, while also being able to use any of his other 6 abilities at the same time. We call this a Nen loophole, since Nen after death has allowed Krollo to break the rules of his own Hatsu. There's no better ability than Kortopi's Gallery Fake to show this off in the match. Also in combination with the Order Stamp ability. More on this later. So, after Hisoka's loss and revival, Hisoka is done with Krollo's bullshit and kills Shanark and Kortopi. This is the second reason why Gallery Fake was used by Krollo. Let me explain. First, having Kortopi die had multiple purposes. 1. To invoke the troops' wrath on Hisoka by having one of their comrades die by Hisoka's hands. And 2. To remove one of the reasons Krollo was able to beat Hisoka before. Gallery Fake was a major factor in Krollo's strategy. When you combine these 2 reasons, you can see that Hisoka is letting Krollo know exactly why he's going after the troop now. The outcome of this match did not give Hisoka quite the pleasure he wanted. What he wanted is a real battle. Not a fight where his opponent can pick the time and place and have infinite prep time, so to speak. So now, Hisoka has decided. He will not wait anymore. Instead, he will take whatever he desires. To add fuel to the fire, Hisoka kills the Phantom Troupe members that lended their Nen abilities to Krollo for the match. Now, Phantom Troupe members had to die for the next part of this arc, where Hisoka would be chased by the remaining spider in their rage. Why? Because how else would Hisoka be chased in a vengeance by some of the most powerful Nen users in the biz? That's what he wants. That's what he loves. Hisoka killing any troop member would have done the job well enough to understand the spider's rage at Hisoka. However, by the writer choosing to have Krollo use one of the spider's Hatsus to beat Hisoka, and then for them to be killed by Hisoka after the match, the murder will sting much more for Krollo, because he will know exactly what is going on and why the murders happened. Because of himself. And the reader will understand this too. Now, why was Kortopi chosen in 2 parts? So why was Kortopi's ability chosen and not anyone else's like Machi's or Shizuku's? Kortopi is the only troop member with a conjuration ability that allows him to conjure multiple objects at once, which is not much on its own. But when you combine it with an ability such as Order Stamp that allows Krollo to control the puppets that get created, you get a really cool combined synergy out of that. So, compared to the other troop abilities such as Blinky, which works perfectly on its own in combat, it is a lot more interesting to combine Gallery Fake with other abilities. Secondly, why was Kortopi chosen to die? Kortopi is a relatively unpopular and unimportant troop member. So losing him, character-wise and ability-wise, we don't miss much. He had little personality, and his ability on its own would not serve for anything bigger or more exciting than the auction swindle. Krollo did far cooler things by using Gallery Fake as part of his arsenal than Kortopi could do on his own, or than Krollo would be able to do using any of the troops' other Hatsus. And honestly, that includes Shanark. Like, what did Krollo do with Black Voice? He only really used it as a means of deception and to fake out Hisoka. Meanwhile, Gallery Fake was used to create like a bajillion clones to crush Hisoka to death, bro. That's way cooler. Corolla using Glide Voice as a fake out versus Sean Arc doing this. And this. What's cooler? Yeah, you can tell me, but I already know what's cooler. At least in the current situation, where it is expected the troupe will fight, it would be hard for the weakest member Kortopi to fulfill a role better than for example Franklin or Bono Lenov, who could have been killed as well. It is a triple whammy of Kortopi's abilities being shown to the fullest already, him not having much of a personality aside from being in the troupe, and him not being able to fill a further role in the story. Not sure if this happened, but it would make sense if Togashi looked at which spider had the most interesting ability for Chrollo to use and who has the least interesting future story potential. Looking at these two conditions, it makes sense Kortopi was chosen for his power and ultimately to die. Considering how the Phantom Troupe as a whole has been characterized in the story so far, losing any of its members will come as a painful blow to them, so it was a wise decision to kill Kortopi in a situation where you need to have a death in there to start a conflict where the remaining troupe members will get active roles in chasing Hisoka. If just Kortopi was killed, the feeling of loss for the troupe would likely be palpable to the reader, however it would not be relatable, since the reader doesn't really care about this almost plot device type of character. This is why the popular fun-loving Shalnark was also killed on the spot. As someone who got to show his personality and Nen abilities to the fullest beforehand, the person who was the informative guy in the crew, as well as usually being a calming force in the troupe, it makes sense to get rid of him, to stir the conflict in the troupe even further, as well as to make the reader feel the pain of losing a character they liked to the killer clown that is Hisoka. Rest in peace, Shalnark and Kortopi. Gotta say, this is all pretty well done for a character with minimal dialogue, bruh. Basically, the only thing Kortopi really talks about in the story is his own ability. He doesn't really have any conversations about what he feels like, you know? All this mileage gotten out of Kortopi makes me believe we don't need to worry about any of the other Phantom Troupe characters being just some throwaway characters. Even characters such as Bono Lenov, who got no speaking time Europe knew. For now, I just want to give kudos to Kortopi for being a great character, for showing us the intricacies of Nen. And he's pretty cute too, you know. We shall see what the future holds for us. Until Hunter x Hunter returns, bye bye.